Listen, some of you parents who are divorced and you have kids, and you're trying to navigate kids and stepkids and all that, it is not easy. There are no magic bullets. We can just tell you how the Lord eventually gets in there and helps, but it is not easy. I'd say that if I was giving anybody encouragement now, like advice now, if you're a dad or a mom, but if you're like a parent of divorced kids, I think I would say to you dads, I would say, just give your kids attention. Just show that you care and that you're there and that you see them and you're proud of them, and be present the best you can. And for moms, usually the kids are with you and you've got your hands full. I mean, you're trying to make a living, do laundry, take kids here and there, make sure they're in sports. I mean, it's a lot going on. And you're also trying to have a life. You're also trying to maybe meet somebody to get remarried yourself. And so the kids can feel quite neglected. It's not intentional, but it can happen. So again, I'd say to moms and dads both, just be as present as you can. And verbally, physically, emotionally, just do your best to be there. I'll share a little bit about I think that number one thing that brings the most pain in a divorce and what God does to remedy it. I'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, let's look at a couple statistics. These are just some things. You may know these, but just so you get the picture. Marriages formed today have about a 41 to 43% chance of ending up in divorce. It's pretty high. Of all the children born to married parents this year, 50% will experience the divorce of their parents before they reach their 18th birthday. Approximately 50% of American children will witness the breakup of a parent's marriage. Of these, close to half will also see the breakup of the second marriage. 40% of children growing up in America today are being raised without fathers. About 40% of children who do not live with their biological father have not seen him during the past 12 months. More than half have never been in his home. 26% of those fathers live in a different state than their children. Well, those are pretty big statistics. And it'd be one thing if it's just talking about little kids, but let me just give a little parenthetical thought here. Your kids are still your kids, not when they're just 10 or 11 or 12. If you've got adult kids, married kids, do you know they still need their mom and dad? They need you differently, but they still need their mom and dad. Nobody can say, I'm proud of you like dad can. Nobody can say, I love you and I care about you like mom. Nobody can say, I understand what you're going through, like your parents. And so listen, let me just encourage you, just because you may be divorced and your kids may be off doing their thing, and you may think, oh, they don't care. They do care. Guaranteed they care. They care to hear from you and to hear something, anything. I mean, throw them a bone. We're going to get to this in a minute, but they're usually so emotionally craving something. Throw them a bone, and you'll be surprised at how well, let me just say this, how well it will eventually be received. Because the first couple times you do it, they're not even going to believe it. If there's a pattern of it not happening, the first couple times it's going to be like, oh, whatever. Because they're building up some walls. I mean, there's certain protective mechanisms that go into place and certain barriers that go up for pure protection. So it'll take a little bit of time, but boy, let me just encourage you, stay at it. Your kids need to hear from you. That's a little side thought. Okay, so let's look at a couple other things on divorce and the effects here. It says full recovery is nearly impossible for children because of the dynamic nature of family life. While parents' lives may go on separately with relatively little thought, the children will think about their loss almost every day. And 25 years after the fact, they will certainly be influenced by it. Life itself will remind them of the loss even at the happiest moments. As one family explains, children never, ever get over divorce. It is a great loss that is in their lives forever. It is like a grief that is never over. All special events such as holidays, plays, sports graduations, marriages, birth of children, and so on bring up the loss created by divorce, as well as the family relationship conflicts that result from the extended family celebrating any event. That's from Focus on the Family. The point is that even though you never fully recover in the sense you never go back to the normal you knew, and even 25 years later, they're still in remembrance of it all the time. There's a graduation party. Who's coming? Where do people sit? There's a wedding. Who walks her down the aisle? Where does everybody sit at the wedding? There's a graduation. There's sporting events. Can both parents even sit in the same bleachers? I mean, it's a constant reminder of the loss of what isn't. And people have said this, and I think it's true. To a degree, people have said things like, it almost would be easier if there had been a death. Because at least with a death, you have a funeral, and you have a celebration of life service, and you show the slides, and everybody cries, and you get lots of hugs, and lots of comfort, and it's acknowledged there was a death, and you get comforted, and then you can recover. You get permission to grieve. And then after a healthy period of time, you recover into the new normal. But with divorce, you don't ever get that. The parents get it depending on if they get remarried or not, whatever the parents do, but the kids don't ever get that. There's really never a moment. There's really never any acknowledgement. So the service today, the restoring of your soul, you matter to the Lord. Permission is granted today to you that have experienced this. Permission is granted for you to go, it's okay how you have felt. It's not you. You thought it was you. And then you always kept trying to make changes because you thought maybe it was you. It's not you. And it's okay to feel the way you feel and the way you have felt and haven't understood, why do I feel this way? And permission to grieve. It was a loss. It was a loss. And you can experience that it was. And then ultimately to experience God's comfort and his restoration, which we'll get to. But I think sometimes we get to the remedies so quick. And in fact, sometimes with kids, it's like we're more sensitive to like mom's going through, and she came out of a bad childhood and she was abused as a kid, and dad, his dad never loved him, and he went through a bunch of stuff, and so two broken people get married, and so then two broken people get married, there's a broken home, and so we talk about the parents, and that's good, and we should. But again, nobody says to the kids, hey, you're a victim of all this. You're getting leftovers of all this, and we're really sorry. And how you're feeling and what you're trying to process and all these disconnects that you now feel are normal, and the Lord can help you. Some of you, you've been saved, and you're like, I'm a Christian now. I thought the Lord was going to fix it all, just boom. Well, he does save our soul, doesn't he? We're born again, we're saved. But there still is this renewing of the mind, emotions, and the will. And sometimes you're saying to yourself, and I've done it, sometimes I'll say, Lord, why do I feel like this? Dear Lord, this happened 40 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Why in the world? What triggered that feeling? So it helps to know it. If nothing else today, besides knowing that you matter, even if nothing else, if you just get a little bit of an education to go, oh, that's what's been going on. Sheesh. So let me show you a couple other things here. Let's put up another slide. When children are raised with chronic loss, without psychological or physical protection that they need and certainly deserve, it is most natural for them to internalize incredible fear. Not receiving the necessary psychological or physical protection equals abandonment. And living with repeated abandonment those experiences creates toxic shame. Shame arises from the painful message implied in abandonment. You are not important. You are not of value. This is the pain from which people need to heal. So just keep that slide up for 1 minute. Abandonment is the most damaging pain of divorce. And experiencing repeated abandonment, meaning physically somebody's not there to protect you and give you housing and shelter and food and clothing, and you're kind of fending for yourself. That's the physical side. And then emotionally, mentally not there to give you the emotional support, the shoulder to cry on, the wisdom, what you need from a mom or from a dad. Without that, then you begin to experience toxic shame. The toxic shame is articulated with, you are not important. You are not of value. Now, nobody says those words necessarily, although they may have, but that's how you feel inside. It says, this is the pain from which people need to heal. That's what we're talking about today. You do matter. You do matter. You are of value. It does matter how you felt and how you feel. You're not invisible. When people experience abandonment in the physical side of things, here's some things that happen on the physical abandonment. The lack of appropriate supervision, inadequate food, nutrition, clothing, housing, shelter, physical or sexual abuse would be physical abandonment. Kids abandoned in this way believe the world is an unsafe place, people are not to be trusted, they do not deserve positive attention, and they do not deserve adequate care, so they feel they don't even deserve it. Well, you're not worth it. You don't matter. That's the implied message. People don't mean to send it, but that is what happens. Then on the emotional side, emotional abandonment is feelings of rejection, feeling undesired, left behind, insecure, or discarded, alone, cut off from a crucial source of sustenance. A spirit of rejection, feeling undesired, unwanted, unlovable, left behind. Everybody else is moving forward. I'm left behind, sitting over here invisible. Kids abandoned in this way believe they have to hide a part of themselves. It's not okay to make a mistake. It's not okay to show feelings. It's not okay to have needs. Others' needs are more important. Why? Because they're not valuable. You don't matter. Your feelings don't matter. Everybody else's do, but yours don't. Because we have to carry on. We have to just carry on with life. We have to just survive and keep on moving. It's not okay to have successes. They will not be acknowledged. Well, that's great, you won some award at school, but we can't be at the MVP award. I remember I think it was in high school, I got like most improved player. I don't know if that was a compliment or not. In basketball, I got most improved player. And I was at the banquet, and all my friends on the team were there, and all my friends' parents were there. And nobody from my family could be there because Mom was working. She was just trying to survive and support us, and my dad didn't come. And I remember I got this award, and I remember walking home afterwards and just thinking, oh, well, yay. Like it just wasn't, and it put in me, even though I couldn't have put my finger on it then, but looking back, I'm like, it kind of put in me this idea that your successes aren't worth celebrating. So parents, just give your kids all the attention you can, the kudos that you can. Well, this is what happens with abandonment, and it's from that pain that kids need to be healed, because what happens is then there's an emotional disconnect with those family members. In other words, I'll bet some of you in here have thought, why do I feel so conflicted? Kids of divorce and other scenarios like this. Why do I feel so conflicted inside? Why do I feel like I should honor my mother and father because the Bible says I should, and I want to do that, but why do I don't have any, I have nothing. I have nothing in here for one parent or the other, depending on your circumstance. I feel nothing. Emotionally, I feel nothing. It's all dutiful. We do the duty thing, but I don't feel anything. And then you say, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? But it may not be that you did anything wrong. That's what we're trying to say. It may be that you just haven't known how to process grief and abandonment and all of these things that go with it. And maybe today the Lord's trying to just peel back the curtains a little bit. Maybe today the Lord's just trying to say, hey, if you're open, because I know some of you are on lockdown. You are on lockdown. I'm talking and you're going, na-na-na-na boo-boo, I don't hear anything she says, na-na-na-na boo-boo. Because you're just on lockdown. I get it. I totally do. If I was in this service and somebody like me was talking, if I wasn't ready to hear this, I would be on lockdown. I just wouldn't be open to it. Because you've already learned how to survive. You've learned how to get by life without unlocking it. The remedy for abandonment is an attachment. And the best attachment, of course, is to be attached to the Lord. And back to my timeline, that's what happened eventually in the story. We got into the new normal, but then eventually, when I was sophomore year in college, Jesus came into the picture, praise the Lord. He came into the picture of my life, and I found him, got born again, and then eventually I shared that with every single person in my family, and every single person came to know Jesus personally. And God did a massive work of restoration in our family in that season. Everybody got born again, and then in the midst of that's a lot of forgiveness, a lot of water under the bridge, a lot of love, a lot of bitterness got uprooted, to the point that when one of my sisters got married, to the point that at one of the weddings, my dad was dancing with my mother at the wedding. My stepmom was dancing with my stepdad at the wedding. Now, who knows? That's a big deal. We've talked to some people, and they said, man, if my ex and I were at a wedding reception, we'd be at opposite ends of the banquet hall. There's no way I'd be dancing with him. That's how much God did. He really came in and did a huge work of restoration. And a lot of really good things, took place in our family. And there was some really fun seasons where we could all be together at Thanksgiving or at Christmas or at a basketball game or different things, and it was very comfortable and fun. Now, let me just give you a little quick thought here. Sometimes there can be a little bit of a relapse. And I want to mention this because you might think, man, what is the deal? Life was fine, and then it seemed like something triggered. You get a phone call out of the blue. You get a letter out of the blue, an email out of the blue, a text out of the blue. You run into somebody out of the blue. A scenario happens out of the blue, and all of a sudden it triggers something, and it stirs up certain feelings, and you think, what is going on? I thought I was over this. I've been over this for 20 years. What in the world is this? I'll share a personal story with you. It was right around the time we built this building. So when we built this building in 2008, the world's economy dropped out. So that was kind of like an important event. The whole world's economy collapsed, and we're trying to build a building. So that was a little bit of stress. But not only that, as you know, we had quite a bit of opposition from the neighbors back in the day, as well as some struggles with the city to build this building. It felt like a spiritual battle was taking place. Financially, there was a little bit of a battle in the world. And then right around that same time, once we got in the building, I invited my dad to come for the grand opening. He lived in Florida at the time. And I invited my dad to come, and I told Jeff, I said, maybe I won't even invite him because he's going to probably say no. But then I thought about honor your mother and father, and just you do your part, reach out, do your part. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So I invited him. I said, we'll pay for it. We want you to come up, celebrate with us and this and that. And he said, no. He said, no, not going to come. And I'm like, why? Just come. But then I was like, no, don't come. If you don't want to come, don't come. You go back and forth, right? Well, he didn't come. So then, for whatever reason, there have been other things over the years, just like there are in any relationship, that you get your feelings hurt. But for whatever reason, man, that was a dagger. And he ended up coming up to Michigan not too long after that. And I was like, well, maybe he'll want to see the building when he's up here. This was a big deal. I mean, dear Lord, it was like hell on earth. World War III happened. We finally got the dang thing built. Please come see it. Is that too honest? But he didn't want to see it. So my sister almost forced him to drive by it. Thank you, Michelle. Dad, hurry, look to the right. There it is. But he never said a word. Never said a word. And it really kind of hurt, just like, wish he just would have acknowledged something. So that just was one of those things. And so then shortly thereafter, we had a conversation, a very hard conversation. And so I don't know what was going on with my dad, honestly. He's with the Lord now, and I know one day it's going to be all great, and I love him, and I appreciate him, and I honor him because he was a great dad in the sense that he could be. But just like all of us, we make mistakes. So this is just the honest side of that. But he said some things to me in a meeting one time that we had, to the point that I led him to the Lord back in the day. And in this particular meeting, he said some things about not appreciating what Jeff and I are doing, didn't believe in women preachers, didn't think I was saved, had never read any of my books or heard any of my sermons or had really seen anything I'd done. And you kind of blow it off and blow it off and blow it off, but I guess at this particular time, it really got to me. So I had to set up some boundaries. And sometimes you have to do that. Just for your own protection, you have to set up some boundaries. What's healthy for you? Where can you go in the relationship? Well, 2012, my dad died. He passed away. And we were with him in that last year and talking to him and stuff. And things got as restored as they could. They got as restored as they could. But, you're navigating these emotions. Like we're talking about, this emotional abandonment. You're like, am I the bad person? And you try to navigate all the different things. Well, when my dad died, my sisters and I, of course, were at the funeral down in Florida. And I didn't cry. I didn't cry at the funeral. I haven't cried since. I've never cried about my dad dying. Well, I know he's with the Lord, so that part I'm glad about. I know in heaven one day we'll have a glad reunion, and we'll all see things clearly, and it'll be great. And I'm going to show him the video of this building. But, so you say, what's that all about? I don't know. I'm not a counselor. So, if some of this resonates, it might be good to go see a counselor if you think you need it, and maybe I should too. Let's all go together. But I think, I'm sure there's something to it. It's the abandonment piece, it's the self-preservation piece. It's all the pieces together. I think it's probably all that. But anyways, I say all that to say, where the Lord comes into the picture is the attachment piece. You may have felt abandoned. You may still be processing why certain things trigger certain things. And I'm just here to say, God's wanting to restore your soul, and you matter. What you do matters. It is worth celebrating. And the attachment piece is our primary attachments to the Lord, and then he gives us good people. I'll give a little shout out to my amazing husband. The Lord gave me the best husband on the planet to show me God's love consistently for 30 plus years. No, he's seriously the most consistent person I have ever met in my life in showing God's love consistently. And the Lord knew I needed somebody just like him. God gives us people, and he gives us himself. This verse in Hebrews, you guys can put that up. Hebrews 13:8. I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. The very first verse the Lord ever spoke to my heart when I became a Christian was this one, which is interesting. Of all the verses in the Bible, why this one, Lord? Well, because you need it. That's why. I will never leave you. Maybe you experienced abandonment like I did. Maybe you did. But the Lord says, I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. Then this verse, Psalm 68, God is a father to the fatherless, a defender of widows. This is God whose dwelling is holy. God places the lonely in families. He sets the prisoners free and gives them joy, but he makes the rebellious live in a sun-scorched land. I love this verse, and this is so true. The Lord sets the lonely or the solitary in families. So he gives you a family. If you've experienced these things we're talking about and feel somewhat abandoned in some ways, God gives you a family. What kind of family? Well, he gives you a church family. He gives you a group of people that are united in Christ, that will love you and that will be a part of your life, if you're willing. And he also gives you people, God-breathed relationships. Don't dismiss them. Don't just blow them off, and don't just be so protective and so guarded. I bet you the Lord's put some people in your life. He set you in a family so that you're not alone. And then finally this verse, even if my mother and father abandon me, the Lord will hold me close. So that's the encouragement today. No matter what you've experienced when it comes to a broken home, and at whatever level you've experienced it, you could have a family that's fully intact and yet you feel abandoned. There's a lot of marriages where the partners feel like they're living alone, but they're married, but it feels like they're living alone. So you might resonate with some of this, and you're married and you have a normal family, but the Lord will hold you close because you matter to the Lord.
Thanks for watching today's show. We hope this message helped you to get the basics, live the life, and do the stuff. Be sure to set your DVR so that you never miss an episode. For more of The Basics with Beth Jones or to watch programs on demand, visit thebasicswithbeth.tv.